Hey guys, so I am very stoked. A whole lot of you hit me up after my first video to say that you're keen, that you're into it, so I'm doing more. I'm going to keep these videos quick, simple, and to the point, more like a conversation and less like me talking at you for 30 minutes about some boring shit. Also, I'm moving from Instagram to YouTube, so when I jump into FL Studio, if you want to see that up close and in detail, there'll be a YouTube link somewhere down below. Anyway, tutorial videos, and personally, it's weird for me because I don't ever like telling someone this is how you should do it, because fuck, I could be wrong. But as long as you guys want some little snippets of how my brain works, I'll deliver some fucking little snippets of how my brain works. So yeah, last video was super general. Since then, a bunch of people have asked me about distortion. So this one is for you guys. And me personally, I love distortion, but it is a big subject. And if I even try to cover it all, harmonic distortion, bit crushing, clipping, whatever 600 billion types there are, it's just going to be unacceptable! So this is just my personal take on the subject, my personal approach to distortion, and some ways that you can think about distortion that might help you with your sound design. So the first thing I want to do is grossly oversimplify the subject so I can give this video some direction. And the way I see it, there is distortion, and then there's distortion. And distortion that I want to talk about today is that second type, that getting a sound and completely destroying the absolute living shit out of it distortion. Okay, so you're probably thinking, why the fuck would I want to do that to my production? This is why. Most of the time, I'll use extreme distortion to quickly and organically realize complex and interesting sounds in my synth design. It can be a great way to take a simple sound like this into this. When you distort a sound, you're breaking a sound, and when you break a sound, you can get sounds, textures, and harmonics that you might never have thought about making. When I'm trying to break a sound, I feel less like I'm designing and more like I'm trying to crack open and fuck up this sound to discover its potential. This can sometimes feel random, like you're fishing for a good sound, and in many ways it is. The trick is fucking up your sound and getting that hectic level of chaos in there, but then capturing that absolute mess of shit and turning it into a controlled instrument that can melodically deliver and behave itself in a mix without spoiling or watering down that initial moment of chaos that made the sound so fun and hectic in the first place. It's a weird process, so here's a visual to help me explain. This is your sound. You distort your sound, but that's not enough. You need to really distort your sound. But now your whole project is fucked from all that distortion. So you need to capture that main essence of your beautiful hot mess, trim away the fat, and bring that sound way back down to a usable volume and neaten it up so it works for your mix, but preserve that initial chaos as best you can. So to break it down, a typical signal chain for me when I'm doing this would be sound goes in, I distort it, I limit it, I reshape it, and the sound comes out. Generally, the limiting stage is me trying to capture that distortion as raw as possible. So I'll use a limiter with a super fast release time, sometimes no release time. And this replicates the clipping distortion that you get of your DAW shitting itself when you pump something in it too loud, which is kind of gross, but also kind of fun as well sometimes. Then you can just drop the limiter's volume way down and Bob's your fucking uncle, you've captured all the joy of your sound card melting, but at a fraction of the volume. If you're starting out and you're not familiar with limiting or a limiter, then think of a limiter as a really rude and violent compressor. If you're not sure what a compressor is, just fucking drop a comment and say, "Oi, dickhead, what the fuck is a compressor?" And I'll do a video on that next time. The next step in that signal chain, the reshaping. At this point, you've got a fat little sausage of chaos. The volume is good thanks to the limiter, but depending on how wild you went with the distortion, there could be some problems. This can be the hard part because how do you define problems when you're talking about a fat sausage of chaos? The easiest way to put it is you have a sound and you like that sound. It has a good character or flavor or voice, whatever you want to call it. But there will be aspects that you can change and improve without losing that wild character and voice and distortion that got you stoked about it in the first place. When you're doing this, always have on hand 3 or 4 reference tracks from artists that you think are fucking killing it right now and just compare back and forth. You're not trying to copy, just think of their tracks as soundscapes. Use their overall EQ balance and their stereo mix as a guideline to keep you grounded and on track. Obvious problems to look out for will be in your EQ balance, your highs, mids, lows, subs, all of it. Not so obvious problems that you should look out for might be the stereo balance, resonant frequencies, and yucky ADSR tails or reverb tails that have been overemphasized by being fucking compressed. There's no special reshaping plugin to recommend here. You just got to use whatever's on hand to get the job done. That's pretty vague, so I'm going to run through some examples right fucking now. So I prepared this project to show you just how fast you can change a basic sound dramatically, and then we can look at some of the shit. So check out this Serum. It's just a basic preset, no offense to whoever made it. And this is just a controller here. Don't get excited or confused by this weird plugin. It's just something I've made to control everything. Here are our corresponding effects. We have the red effects, the blue effects, and the green effects. Side note, I'm colorblind as shit, so sorry if any of the colors are weird. I don't know. Anyway, here we go. Effect number 2, and then the green effects. 3 very different sounds, wildly different results just from throwing a distortion on this guy. Add a kick in the snare, and it's hectic. Like, I mean, it's, you know, it's boring. It's boring, but it's cool. It's not a song. Yeah. So if you want to run through those, you know, and just see what's actually happening here. Red Effects is just one plugin. It's Serum Effects, my favorite thing in the world. And it's an EQ, a French LP filter, which I'm using for distortion. Ah, fuck. Amazing tip here. Let me rewind. So one of my favorite distortions come from the drive here in the Serum filter effects. So that's a cool tip, I suppose. French LP is hectic, but also German LP, reverb, comb, all of these bad boys can do some really hectic distortions when you pump the drive of them and mess around with the cutoff, resonance, and whatever extra little options they give you. They'll be different each time. But, you know, just have a play with them is my best advice. Check out the Serum miscellaneous filters. Check them out. Anyway, fuck, I've got some blue tack stuck on my... So yeah, this sound. We've got an EQ, a filter, and a compressor. And we can turn things on and off and see how it's affecting. Cutting out a lot, actually. Take it out, and the French LP filter is providing the distortion. Turn that off. And you could say that this is reshaping it a little bit and capturing it as well, because the compressor is kind of acting like a limiter, stopping the volume from going too mental. And this is just distorting the absolute bollocks out of it. The blue effects. Wow, there is actually not a lot happening here. I strayed very far off the path. This is the same distortion again, but with the EQ just bollocksing everything off. Turn that shit off and all you've got is this. I mean, where is the sound even? Maybe you can hear that. It's just a sub. See, a little bit there going on. Wow. Great example of how almost nothing can go fucking wild with a filter, distortion again, love it, and the compressor. Moving on. Green effects. This one's kind of fun. You'll hear a different, oop, hello, reverb. This is like my favorite, one of my favorite distortions. Go to the filter and go to miscellaneous and go to reverb. Here he is. Moving that cutoff around can get you some hectic results. What are we on? 67. And then we have a compressor again. It's crushing the volume and shaping it a bit. And a little tiny EQ boy there doing nothing at all, really. This one I actually have chucked in a limiter as well. This is what I would usually do after all that distortion. And you can see the limiter is just crushing the shit out of that signal, bringing the volume down by 16.7 dB, which is a fuckload to make it audibly pleasant. Last thing here that I didn't really cover is the yellow. This is just another example of how you can control a sound after you've fucked with it a bit. It sounds best with the red. there's kind of no distinction there in the notes. So once you have distorted something and made it a mess, you can chuck things on it to neaten it up. This is just a gate, a volume gate, just cutting the ends off the note without it. Choppier and more fun in a beat. Moving on. So example number 2 is Sophie. Sophie is a fucking rad producer, and this is a sample that I got from Splice. It's fucking wild. I mean, it's already distorted, it's already chaotic, and I actually love using these kind of samples to make synths out of. This more accurately mirrors my process at Distortion. I'll play the whole thing with all the effects on, and then oh dear, that's a lot of distortion there. Not having a good time. So this is what it sounds like in the end, which is just, you know, a lot of fun to listen to, and also very different from the original starting point. So how do we get here? So we have a sample. There it is. Then I use the glitch, this plugin here that I showed in my last video is one of my favorite plugins to get fucking random results and have a good time with, basically. It's re-triggering, basically just grabbing the very first millisecond or so of this sample and then looping it. It's the same as chopping this little bit here and spreading it over and over and over and over again. And it's looping it at 31.67 speed, and it sounds like that. So then I chuck on a distortion. Ooh, hello. So this is something I should, a good chance to cover now. Sometimes you need to prepare for shit to get wild. So what I've got here is a peak controller. Hello, that's the peak controller. I think in Ableton it's called an envelope follower. I don't know, just Google it. Turn it on by pressing this little guy here. It tracks the peak or the volume of your sound. There's my sound there. So it tracks that volume and turns it into an automation that a plugin can follow. So inside Serum, this mix of the French LP distortion is tracked to the volume of the sample. So when the sample stops, the mix turns off. Anyway, you have to do that because without it, let's turn the peak controller off. It just keeps going. It's kind of like a weird feedback thing that Serum's doing there. So I keep things safe. I keep that on. Anyway, so we have distortion number 1. With distortion number 2, because why not? That's a big change. So distortion number 2, in case you're wondering, is the reverb filter. Yet again, hello, I'm a creature of habit here. And to get that tonal shift, it's the cutoff. The cutoff is moving. It's automated as well, somewhere in behind the scenes. Just a little bit. Just a little bit there. It's doing its thing. So we have that, and then so we've fucked up the sound. I don't actually have a limiter here. That's annoying. I will later in another example, but we have some control. So this is what I was talking about when I'm making the sound more usable. So how am I controlling this one? I think this sounds hectic, but I have a stereo EQ on, and this is an EQ. I don't know if you can hear that, unless you're on like speakers or headphones. So stereo EQ, the blue line is for the stereo sides, and the orange line, or is it a green line? I don't know. That is for the center image of the sound. And so we've got an EQ here boosting the bass and boosting some frequencies that I thought were important. And we have a stereo signal being cut out because I didn't want any stereo signal in the low end. It kind of fucked up the sound as far as I was concerned. And then it needed a lot of sound removed from the highs. So hence the EQ. Then I put a multiband on it. That just calms it down a little bit. Again, nothing too hectic, but it just shapes the sound in a way I was a bit more happy with. And then yeah, pop the kick and snare back in. You can even check it out with the other synth. Oop, that's boring again. Let's put something better on. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at doing when I'm fucking around with all this shit. You can have two very kind of whatever sounds, and you can quickly turn them into something completely different and exciting and wild with the help of distortion and just by going in there and fucking shit up. So I'm going to open up a project where I've actually done this in a song, because these are kind of stale and kind of isolated, kind of simplified versions. Let's go the big thing. This one. No. All right. So here's a project that is nowhere near finished, so don't read into it. This is just something I was fucking around with. And this is my distortion process, like in full effect. It's messy, it's wrong, it's fucked up. There's lots of unnecessary plugins. I mean, look how many plugins are going on here. I think the sound starts at number 4. And there's a sub that I put there with it. And then it goes to 5 for some reason, I don't even remember. And then I've got it routed into a channel that mutes itself just to be safe. And then I've got it with a bass side chain EQ, a fucking what the hell piece of shit EQ is that, another glitch that you saw before that gives it some tonality, a distortion. Apparently I've said static, so it means it doesn't move. And I've got a stupid EQ. Oh yeah, I must have been in some kind of fucking mood when I was doing that. I've got a multiband. That's probably just doing some sub. Yeah, some sub. Ooh, hello. And then we have an automated, that's just my notes to myself, an automated reverb filter distortion. And we have another distortion, I'm guessing, in Serum. Yep, another distortion, French LP again. Woo! And a maximizer to capture the noise and to clip it a little bit. And then another multiband doing, whoa, it thinks it's doing something because there's so much shit going on. That's why we have a mute somewhere in here, I'm guessing. We do. So this is an on and off switch. So there's so much dumb shit in here going on that it's just constantly making a noise. And I have to automate a mute. There's a mute here that I automate just to make sure that it doesn't make a noise when it shouldn't. So anyway, let's play it and you'll hear what this whole fuckery has done. Oh, there it is, breaking again. This probably just needs to have, there we go, the off switch. So yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, without any of those distortions, I can't remember exactly, but I know this is going to sound fucking stupid. I turn those distortions off. That's the song. So let's turn the distortions on again. So where is it actually coming from? So yeah, there we go. That's the song. Fucking electrode. Rubbish. Glitch. Distortion. And distortion. If you're wondering how it can go from this if you're wondering how I can go from that to something melodic, it's all in this filter distortion here in Serum Effects. The cutoff is automated, and as it moves around, it temporarily creates the impression of like a moving note. It's kind of hard to explain, so you can just hear it moving and doing its thing. If I play it, I'm going to play it. And yeah, if you're wondering why that's moving when there's no sound coming through, it's because I usually do that. I usually just write this really long, boring drop that's just constantly going, and then I'll cut moments of silence out of it to try and make it more interesting. And I just don't delete the automation in case I, want to have it back in there again. Anyway, that's basically it. I mean, it's a simple process that can be as complicated or not complicated as you need it to be. But I need to say one last time, this is definitely not a widely accepted or established process. I'm not showing you the right way to do anything. This is probably the wrongest way of doing shit, but maybe it gives you some ideas, some new ways of approaching distortion, so you can come up with your own wrongest ideas and make some sick sounds for yourself. What's the main takeaway here? Introduce some madness to your process and don't be afraid to fuck it up. Breaking your sounds and pushing them to their limits is fun and a great way to learn what you can and can't do. If you're a new producer, I fully understand that sound design and getting a hang of plugins like Serum can feel very overwhelming. It's easy to lose motivation and get frustrated and bored, so I hope this has shown you another way to discover new sounds quickly that will keep you pumped, excited, and keen to keep going. There is so much more that I'd love to go into on this, but I gotta wrap the video up somehow, and there was also some assumed knowledge in this. I'm still working out where you guys are at and what you guys want. So if something didn't make sense, let me know in the comments what you want to see next or what you want to know. And just like last time, stay safe, stay sick, be good. Fucking, I'm out.